One day in desperation, when my months-old baby refused to sleep, I Googled how to make baby sleep, and up popped a website called Baby Bliss. I was skeptical because I thought it's another one of these hardcore, tough love baby whisperers making me leave my baby alone to cry, and I didn't want to do that. But I had the pleasure of hearing Baby Bliss founder Jo Ryan talking to a group of mums more recently and realised that she is none of that. The former paediatric nurse and nanny is all about connecting with our babies to make them and us happy. Jo Ryan joins us now on Mother Zen. Jo, thanks so much for your time. You've helped literally thousands of mums, new mums, with their new babies to get on their feet. Why do you think so many mums find motherhood such a struggle?
Well, I think these days it's very different to what it was, say, like in our mother's days or our grandmother's days. I think that women have a lot more pressure these days. There's a lot of information out there, so there's this oversupply of information, and women and men are sort of Googling and reading and thinking that if I read enough, then I'll know. We don't have the support we had. Back before we used to work, we often live away from our parents, from our family. We're isolated, we're older often, these days having babies, and we've often got to go back to work. So there's a whole lot of other pressures today than there used to be.
I think one of the greatest struggles that new mums in particular seem to face is trying to get the baby to sleep. Yes. Why is that so hard?
Well, it's kind of the million-dollar question, really, about sleep. And I think that often there's this pressure to get your baby to sleep probably before it's really ready to sleep, because often, like I said, mothers have to go back to work. So there's this pressure, I've got to get the baby sleeping through the night before I go back to work, or I'm just going to be exhausted. And it's often an unrealistic expectation because babies, often can't sleep the whole night through when they're tiny, and there's, they need to feed. So I think we need to sort of adjust our expectations a little bit and understand that, there might be some sleepless nights for some time, but they do eventually start sleeping through the night.
There does seem to be, doesn't there, this persistent myth that you've got to get your baby to sleep through the night. As you say, it's like the golden egg. Yeah. But they're not really designed to sleep through the night, are they? And I think once we get that, we can let go of that.
Totally. And I think that if you understand how babies work, and the fact that they have these tiny little tummies and all they're getting is often breast milk or milk, that they can't survive 12 hours without being fed, particularly when they're a little weight, they only weigh a certain amount. But so I think if, my big thing is for new parents to understand a little bit about the way babies work and what they need, and then you can adjust your expectations slightly.
This controversial idea of controlled crying, which is leaving your babies to cry it out for periods of time, that seems to be slowly falling out of favour, thank goodness. Is there ever any room for that?
I don't believe so. But again, I don't sort of come to this, I try not to be judgmental about other parents' choices. And I think some women just don't feel they have a choice or an option. They think they either have to put up with really, a baby that's waking a lot, or they have to control cry because they don't think there is anything else out there. And a lot of people will say to them, just let the baby cry it out. It worked for them. But there are alternatives, and you don't have to leave a baby to cry it out. It feels sort of a bit mean to do that to a young baby too. I wouldn't like to be left to cry alone if I've given up something or going through something really traumatic. And for babies, giving up feeding or giving up a dummy or being put to bed a different way than they are used to is very traumatic for them. So I think it's important to be there and support them through that. So no, I'm not. I don't believe there's a place for controlled crying because there are successful alternatives to get your baby to sleep in a gentle way.
What are they? Do tell.
Yeah. So that's the big question. So we always stay with the babies when we're, and that's the philosophy of Baby Bliss, is we never leave the babies to cry on their own. But babies develop really strong sleep associations very early in life, and so the way they're put to sleep time and time again, we're all creatures of habit, so they get that really early. And if they've been fed back to sleep overnight when they perhaps are bigger and they don't really need to be, or they have a dummy, so they're used to sucking a dummy to go off to sleep, and the dummy falls out, and then you're up sort of 10 or 12 times a night putting the dummy in. So we remove those associations gently, but we always stay with the baby and soothe them back to sleep. And they get it really quickly. They're very smart. They're little sponges. But you've just got to be really consistent in your approach and not confuse them.
So much of motherhood, from my experience, is actually instinctual, but yet we rely on books and we rely on people to give us advice. Have we lost the art of mother's instinct?
I think we have. I think we're overwhelmed a little bit these days because there's such an oversupply of information out there on the internet. There's 1,000 parenting books, in the bookshop. You've got your neighbour, you've got your mother's group, you've got your baby health nurse. Everyone's telling you different things. So I think we've actually lost the ability to tap into our instinct, but we all have it. I mean, I have it with these babies, and they're not even my baby, but I can kind of look at them and understand what might work better for them. So I think, I tell new parents all the time, just kind of get rid of all that noise, realise you're going to be given advice left, right and centre, but kind of just let it wash over you a bit and have one approach, like have one philosophy or one person whose parenting you admire or one, expert whose book you like or whatever it might be, and just kind of go with that, go with your gut on that, because you'll know if someone tells you to do something to your baby, you'll know whether it feels right or not. So I would say don't do something that doesn't feel right to you.
They do say that a happy mum equals a happy baby. So who do we put first? Should it be us or should it be the baby?
Well, it's a bit of a 50-50, I think, because, if you don't feel happy and you're exhausted and you're feeling down, and then, your baby's going to pick up on that. So then they're going to feel that and respond to that. But also I think you've made a choice to have a baby and you've made a choice to change your life. So the baby's needs need to be very important and foremost in your mind as well. Like your life is going to change. I think a lot of people say to me, oh, my life, I don't want it to change. I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. But babies hate being dragged around all day, every day. And, they hate coffee shops and they hate shopping centres because all the lights and the shiny surfaces send them a bit crazy. So, I think you've got to understand your baby's needs, but as well look after yourself if you can in there and get some time for you and then everyone's happy.
I think one of the main questions you get asked as a new mum is, do you have an easy baby?
Yes.
There's this real pressure on having an easy baby, or is your baby difficult? Do we bring that on ourselves? How much can a mother influence whether your baby is easy or difficult?
I do think it's perception, absolutely. But I do think that some babies have different personality types or issues, like a baby with reflux is a really tricky baby to get to sleep. There's a lot of crying, and the mother might not realise there's something else going on for some time. But, all babies are beautiful and gorgeous, and all babies will eventually get through whatever it is that's troubling them. I mean, parents these days can be, some mothers are more anxious, and again, it's personality types. Some parents are really chilled out and relaxed. But I think that eventually, all babies will get to where they need to be. And I think you've just got to kind of enjoy that first little time as much as you can and not sort of try to over workshop it or over kind of think it too much. Yeah.
So if you could give us your top tips to make motherhood easier on mums, what would they be?
The big thing, I think, is that all new parents should never leave the hospital without understanding that newborn babies can only be awake for an hour, and knowing how long newborn babies can be awake for, and babies as they grow. Because we just assume that babies, if you don't know about babies, you just assume they're going to fall asleep when they're tired. But as you know, babies actually don't sleep when they're tired. They actually get harder to put to sleep. So understanding just those few little things, so knowing how long your baby should be awake for, knowing how often they need to be fed for, knowing how long they should be sleeping for, understanding about settling a baby, that you actually have to settle a baby to sleep rather than, they're not just going to drop off, as much as we'd like them to. Try to relax as much as you can. I know that's really easy to say, but when you're in it, it's hard, but it does pass really quickly, particularly that first 12 months. It's gone in a blink. But when you're in it, you think it's never going to end. Try to get as much support, as you can. Try not to do too much. If people offer you help, take it, and just try to kind of enjoy it as much as you can, because, like I say, it passes really quickly.
Too quickly.
Yeah.
Jo Ryan, thank you so much.
Pleasure.